It's already 9 o'clock. We're going to get going. And warm welcome everyone to this Learnifier webinar. My name is Ulrika Perrin. I'm a marketing manager here at Learnifier, and I'm really happy to see that so many of you have chosen to spend this morning with us. A question I often get is whether you will get the recording and the slides afterwards, and the answer to this is yes, you will get that. And please ask questions in the chat during the session. We will address as many of them as we can at the end. Yeah, those are the practical things I would say. But 3 years ago, the Nordic Financial Services Group, SEB, introduced a new leadership concept, focusing on 6 leadership skills and regular check-ins rather than large dedicated training sessions programs. And today, Mattias Dahl Sandrén, I'm sorry, I don't know why I added a D at the end, a licensed psychologist and learning and development partner at SEB, will share how they work to strengthen leadership in the workplace. But before I hand over the word to him, we're going to take a quick look at the agenda. It is a simple agenda. We start at 9. We started already. We're going to give you a short intro to Learnifier. Then I'll hand over the mic to Mattias. We'll do questions at 9:35, and then we'll wrap up and say goodbye at 9:45. So who are we? Well, we are the leading learning platform in the Nordics, and we believe in making training easy, engaging, and efficient to achieve business outcomes. We're based in Sweden, but customers around the world use us to create learning experiences, training programs, and entire academies, primarily to onboard and develop the skills of their employees. We work with many of Sweden's strongest brands, as you can see here on the slide. But now let me introduce today's speaker. Well, Mattias Dahl Sandrén. He brings with him more than 15 years of experience as a business psychologist, management consultant, and HR specialist and partner for various companies and industries. He's currently a learning and development partner at SEB, mainly supporting the large corporate and financial institutions division. Wow, that is one interesting division with strategic up and reskilling initiatives. Leadership team and management team development. So yes, I'm going to give the stage to you. Warm welcome, Mattias. Please fire away.
Thank you very much for that very nice introduction. You almost made me blush. And then I realized that I think I wrote most of the content for that. So
You probably did, yes, exactly. I didn't make it up.
I should have been sort of prepared, but you know, hearing someone else saying your own words is a humbling experience, and also looking at yourself is fun for a while. So I'll try to hijack the the sharing and see if I'm successful. No, I'll try again. Here we are. Maybe.
Let's see. Yes.
All right. So connection on Rindö Vaxholm is hopefully stable enough this morning. We'll see. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I'm here today to talk about SEB's leadership concept that we developed, me and my colleagues. We developed 3 years ago. It was released and launched within SEB. And it's called Transformative Leadership. And maybe I should start already here to maybe try and avoid a bit of confusion, because I know there are tons of different leadership theories and models out there. There is also one very famous model or theory called transformational leadership. And just to be clear, so transformative leadership is SEB's own leadership model. That's what we call it. So hopefully not to confuse it with any other model out there with a similar name. So I'm going to talk about this model, like Ulrika said, and I will also talk a bit about how we've tried to move from having these full day, long days off-site leadership trainings to try and incorporate it more into our leaders and our management teams' flow of work. So having quicker, shorter check-ins, having them actually use a lot of this content that we've created to help them make progress in their everyday work life. And I think I will actually, I was going to talk a bit about myself, but I got that very sort of nice introductions. I think I can skip that part. I joined SEB 3.5 years ago. I have a role then that's called Learning and Development Partner. I am 1 out of 7 in total with this role, and I have the pleasure then to support our large corporate and financial institution division a bit more than the other parts of the bank. So just wanted to give you a quick sort of background on where we started when we produced and created this leadership concept. So we had some let's say principles in mind that we wanted to adhere to. So first of all, we wanted to create something that would be tangible and useful. We wanted something that our leaders could actually do something with and move quickly from learning about it to actually transfer that into something actionable. So we wanted something that could support our leaders in bringing their part of our business strategy into reality, basically. So, I mean, we also, of course, we looked at the strategic documents that we had. In that case, it was SEB's 2030 strategy and vision, the business plans that were there, and we made sure to align the leadership concept with that content. We also wanted to particularly stress a couple of things. One is that, I mean, first of all, SEB is these days very much part of a financial ecosystem. And no matter where you work within our organization of almost 18,000 employees, you are part of an internal ecosystem, and it's a complex environment to be in. It's a complex environment to lead other people in. So one crucial component in this leadership concept is also to create an awareness of this ecosystem and how that impacts the way we do things. Another important part to emphasize for us was SEB has for some years now tried to take an active stance in sustainability, in taking responsibility for future generations. Our chairman, Marcus Wallenberg, he always says that when other companies talk about the next quarter, we should be focusing on the next quarter of a century. That's sort of the time horizon that we should be looking at. So the sustainability aspect, also from a leadership point of view, sustainable leadership, what does that look like? And how can we support our leaders in developing those skills? And finally, I mean, it's leadership skills that we're talking about. So a huge emphasis on also on interpersonal skills that can drive collaboration and innovation for SEB. So those were some sort of core principles. In addition to that, we wanted to have leadership skills or abilities that were very much behavior focused. So meaning, what do we actually do in our leadership every day? We wanted to move from considering only managers to be equal leaders to consider everyone working in SEB potential leaders, formal or informal. And finally, that inclusion and diversity is a crucial component, and it's actually built into all parts of the leadership concept that we have. So what it all mounted down to basically is a leadership concept with 6 different parts, 6 different abilities that you can see on this slide. So I thought I would just briefly, I'll try to be brief, but I'm also very passionate about this content, so I might talk a bit more than I'm allowed to. So I would like to go through these different abilities, just quickly putting them in a bit of context, what we actually mean. So starting with be curious and listen empathically. So empathic listening is in essence, when we talk about empathic listening within SEB, we mean essentially two things. The first one, and the most important one, is that we, to a much greater extent, need to listen in order to understand the speaker's point of view. So for us, when we talk about empathic listening, it has a lot to do with try to take someone else's perspective. So first of all, maybe noticing that there's a difference of opinion when you're in a discussion. But instead of always trying to focus on winning the argument, actually trying to understand, why are we looking at this so differently? And is there a way that we can actually try to forge these different perspectives into something that will create value for us? So that's the first important thing. The second important thing, as with genuine listening, is to make the speaker feel understood and heard. And I mean, I also understand these are basics, but to be honest, how often do we actually listen where we accomplish these two things? I can honestly say, I can look at myself and say, not enough, definitely not enough. But what we try then to teach and train our leaders to do, again, these are simple things. One thing, put other things aside and show curiosity. You need to be curious about other people, what they're trying to tell you, and you need to show them that you're interested. A really good way of listening empathically is to ask open questions. That's also a good way to show that you're curious. And finally, you need to search for the essence of what's being said. You need to use your own word to summarize and show that you actually heard what they were trying to tell. So that's empathic listening. It's a crucial starting point if you want to be a successful leader. I would say in all contexts, but definitely within SEB. So once we have people who are really good listeners, we also want people to chip in. So the second leadership ability is called Speak Your Mind, Create Psychological Safety. So for those of you who are new to psychological safety, this is one of the definitions that Amy Edmondson, who done a lot of research on psychological safety over the past 20 years, she says that psychological safety is the belief that the context is safe for interpersonal risk-taking, that speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes will be welcomed and valued. So this is partly where we focus a lot on inclusion and diversity. So we want these different perspectives to be included. We want diversity of thought. We want people to feel safe to speak up, to share their ideas, to challenge things that they think are wrong. We want people to admit when things aren't working. We want people to address failure. We want people to talk about mistakes that has been made so that we can learn from them, potentially even try to correct them. So this is something we train our leaders to do in different ways. And I mean, it's not rocket science, but there are some behaviors that we focus on a bit more. So one of those things is that we encourage our leaders to be vulnerable themselves, to ask for help, to ask for feedback, to be role models, and also talk about mistakes, talk about challenges. I think our CEO is an excellent role model in this. He says, not all the time, but I've heard him say on stage in front of all employees, the 17,000+ employees, saying that, you know what, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what we're heading into. So I'm going to need everyone's sort of input and perspectives in order for us to sort of navigate into the future. And that's okay. it's okay to say that you don't know. And another thing is more sort of from a more practical concern when we have our meetings, to explicitly invite all team members to speak their minds. Try to divide talk time evenly, keeping in mind that we have in most groups, we will have a mix of extroverts and introverts. Some are very, enjoys the sound of their own voice, whereas others need time to digest. They need to think before they speak. So, I mean, you need to balance these different aspects, of course. But if you have a team with people where some people always speak and others never speak, that's something you need to manage. And then also some components that we sort of borrowed from Amy Edmondson. But if we say that it's okay to make mistakes, we will need to fail and make mistakes if we want to innovate, if we want to improve, then how you react when those mistakes happen is crucial. We call that to respond productively. So to say that it's okay to make mistakes and then gel someone's head off once that mistake has been made won't work. Then people will not stop making mistakes, but they will stop telling you about the mistakes that have been made. And similarly, if you want people to question things, if you want people to have opposing views, then you need to thank them once they dare to put those forward. So the third ability, leadership ability that we have in the concept, we call that to co-create clarity and set strategic frames. So this is our strategic frame that we work with in SEB. And it's 3 questions. It's the same question twice. Otherwise it would be a pyramid. And I mean, we don't like pyramids. We wanted a frame. So on the top, where do we want to go? We need to, in all the teams that we have, in all the business units and cross collaborations that we had, we need to agree on where we're heading. So we need to sort of co-create clarity on the goals and the vision. But we also need to co-create clarity around the purpose. Why are we here? What are we here to actually accomplish? What is our sort of reason for being in the different teams that we have? And we also need to agree on how we want to do things. So how we want to do things, that could be anything from agreeing on a set of ground rules, what's okay, what's not okay. That could be to sort of try to concretize, what are the team values that we should try to work and adhere to, just as an example. And the reason that we put a lot of emphasis on co-creating clarity and set this strategic frame is that we want autonomous employees, right? We at least I think that's the case in a lot of companies. You want people to be able to make their own decisions, to find their way forward, but we want aligned autonomy. We don't want people to running around and do acting in all kinds of ways, because that would lead to, I mean, potentially anarchy. So we want this frame because we want what we call aligned autonomy. So just for you who are listening now, since I will give you a short break from listening to me, and I would like you to think just for 30 seconds or so. As of now, are you able to answer the 3 questions for your team, the team that you belong to? Where do we want to go? Why are we here? And how do we want to do things? So think about that for 30 seconds. And then my favorite question, actually. With the others, I mean, other members of that team you're thinking about, would they say the same? So these are basically the components that we work with within our management teams, within our leadership constellations, To set strategic frame is to agree on these things. But to co-create clarity is to make sure we look at it the same way, that we actually have alignment. So sometimes those are very sort of similar processes, and sometimes they differ a bit. Next leadership ability is release potential and share power. And in this ability, we went back to some very sort of classic theories on motivation. I'm sure some of you or many of you have heard about self-determination theory, which looks into something we call intrinsic motivation. So in, having studied motivation for many years, DC and Ryan, they found 3 different things that seems to be fairly universal in what drives motivation in people. So most people seem to appreciate a certain amount of autonomy in their life and at work. Again, they seem to appreciate, if not deciding on the goal, then at least getting a say on how to get there. So a lot of people seem to appreciate autonomy. Most people also seem to appreciate to grow, to develop, to improve, to become better at something. That's the competence part of intrinsic motivation, to feel competent and to feel that there is growth in that. And the last part, relatedness, or the need to belong, the need that people seem to have to belong to a group or a family, or to be part of something. So we have both the autonomy part, but we have also the need to belong and be able to relate. So in this ability, we focus on 2 things primarily. We focus on using more coaching as part of your leadership style. Instead of telling people how to do and what to do, we encourage our leaders to work more with asking relevant questions. And this is once again to increase the level of autonomy. And coaching is an excellent way to see people, to make them feel seen and heard, and you hit that relatedness need that people have. And then we also work with delegation in different ways, and not delegation is in sort of how can I get someone else to do the boring stuff, or I have so much administration, I just need someone to take that off my hands. But it's delegation from a viewpoint of how can I actually make someone else grow with increased responsibility? How can I encourage someone to step out of their comfort zone? How can I sort of convince myself to let go of some of that, need of control that I think a lot of us have, and a lot of leaders and managers in particular. So coaching and delegation, 2 important aspects of this ability. Moving on, we're almost at the end, so bear with me. The 5th ability, we call that smarter together and learn continuously. And this is from a notion that we've had, and I'm sure a lot of you have had. So, within SEB, within the financial sector, we see that, we have lots of regulations coming and have done that for some years. We have increased competition. We have niche players, big and small. We have new technology. And, some of our competitors, they started with technology and then they said that, what the hell, we might as well have a bank. Whereas in SEB's case, we've been here since 1856. So it's quite we've done banking for a very, very long time, but we need to sort of shift dramatically because of this new technology. These things, they drive customer expectations. They also drive employee expectations. So we have, employees and customers that demands a lot from us. At the same time, we have infrastructure and processes and people and ways of working that are, let's face it, fairly slow in adapting. So we get this gap, right? We get this gap between pace of change and our ability to respond. So here we all need to put in a very mindful and deliberate effort in trying to close this gap. So from a leadership point of view, it's constantly figuring out how and what do we need to develop and learn to become better, to stay relevant, to future-proof what we do and how we do things. So it's about nurturing a growth mindset. It's about seeing failures as, first attempt in learning instead of something, that should be avoided at all costs. It's about using feedback in different ways. One thing that we try to get our management teams to do on a regular basis is something that's called after action review. I'm sure some of you have heard about that, but something that has proven to increase performance in teams with 25-30%. And it's a very basic taking the time to reflect on how we're doing things and what can be improved going forward. Basically, that's it. Feedback to the team and the team's work. So this is what we'll focus on in Smarter Together and Learn Continuously. And then, the final leadership ability, energize and inspire by a bigger purpose. So whenever I'm thinking about this leadership ability, I'm thinking about a story that I don't know if it's true, but someone told me once, you should never check a good story. So I will go ahead and assume that it's real. And it's about John F. Kennedy, who allegedly visited NASA headquarters. I'm guessing this was, early 60s. And he was given a tour around NASA headquarters. He introduced himself and he stopped, and said hi to everyone working there. And then he met a janitor, a person who was, mopping the floor. And he asked this person, oh, so what do you do here at NASA? And the janitor said, I'm helping put a man on the moon. And so when we're talking about energized and inspired by bigger purpose, it's we're trying to focus on, this is another way of looking at it. So I think for most people, when at work, we know what we're doing. In our case, I have colleagues who support customers. Maybe they assure anti-money laundering processes. Maybe they make KYC reviews. This is know your customer reviews. So these are sort of things that a lot of my colleagues do within SEB. And they probably know how to do that. Sometimes you need to make an inquiry call to a customer, you need to ask for more information, maybe you need to prepare a PowerPoint, you compile a report and all of these things. But it's not necessarily the case that you know why you're doing that. Maybe you do, at some intellectual part of your brain, you might know why. But according at least to some research, we aren't able to think about why we're doing something and actually doing it at the same time. And if we're only in the doing side of things and we don't considering why, we might lose that very important, again, motivational aspect of feeling that what I do actually makes a difference. And so the why can look different for different people. We have, former police officers working in SEB because, their why is catching the bad guys. And I have other colleagues who are very sort of, they work their ass off to try and positively shape the future with, the next green linked bond or green loan or whatever they think might have a positive impact for environment going forward. So those were the 6 abilities that we have in our leadership concept. And just to give you sort of a quick overview of the past 3 years. So we released this concept in the spring of 2021. We also launched what we call Transformative Leadership Community, which is basically it's a chat. It's a gigantic chat group in Microsoft Teams. So we have more than 1,000 leaders signed up. So this is where people, post questions. If they have, challenges, they ask for advice and inspiration. We can share, relevant articles, or, whenever there are training opportunities or things like that. We also started to focus on having workshops around this concept and the different parts in management teams and different leader constellations throughout the SEB. So I think at this point we have roughly 40 hours of workshop material connecting to the different aspects of the leadership concept. We went from that to trying to scale this transformative leadership by having what we call open labs. So we might have, a 2-hour session on how to create psychological safety, and leaders sign up to join these, typically virtual labs. And now, and going forward also into 2024, we're continuing these efforts. So now we're focusing a lot on what we call self-service, and this in the flow of work concept that I wanted to show you briefly. So basically in the self-service part, we have our corporate university, our corporate campus. So there, our leaders can go in, they can go to the collection that we have for transformative leadership. They get it's sort of a brief introduction to what is transformative leadership. Then we have these sort of course cards for each ability in the concept. So if you click on learn continuously through feedback, for example, you get a video, an introduction to feedback. You get, I think there are like 4 or 5 different exercises and things that you can run in your own team based on sort of the needs that you see. So this is just, trying to take, basically me and my colleagues' knowledge and competence, and trying to just make it as available as possible. So we don't become the bottlenecks in all of this. When we come to in the flow of work, that sort of setup, this is something that we started to pilot last year. It feels so strange to think of 2023 as last year, but that's what it is, right? So we started to pilot this last year, and basically what this means is that it could be, in this case, consider all the leaders within a certain part of SEB. Let's say all leaders within a business unit, for example. Let's say that could be 40 or 50 leaders or managers or sort of informal leaders. So basically we gather them roughly once a month, and that could be an hour, 90 minutes, something like that. And this is just one of the setups that we've run. So starting in Q1 with something we called My Leadership. And this is basically just, it's an individual reflection exercise where you try to put on print your purpose as a leader at SEB. So what's your why? What's important to you? What are the core values that you lead from? And how can other people tell that's the case? So it's going into this going into this journey with a set of this is what I'm aiming towards as a leader at SEB. But then we add different things. So we have something we call trio coaching, which is basically leaders who bring their own leadership challenge to one of these sessions. They get to practice on coaching each other during these sessions. So you get both the practice on your coaching skills, your coaching abilities, while hopefully also getting, progress on a challenge that you're currently experiencing. Then we might add something that we call micro trend, and that is to take more of an outside view on what is going on around us that might impact how we do things. So this is the learn continuous part. So what's what's the latest trends within whatever it is that we're doing? How might AI impact this or that? So this is more of a, make sure you're hyper aware of what's going on around you. And then maybe we have a couple of sessions on delegation where you actually get to consider, okay, of all the things that I have that I'm responsible for, what are the things that I could delegate that I've chosen not to for some reason? And then we try to encourage people to delegate more consciously, with also that, getting growth in other people. So this is just an example. So basically what we do, we take these self-service resources that we've produced, we help leader communities or management teams to curate something based on their needs. So this is what it could look like for a management team, as an example. So then you might have one session where you set strategic frames, you agree on these are the goals we have, this is our purpose, and this is how we do things. And then you have sort of calibrating sessions, roughly on a quarterly basis. You probably want to have some sort of team feedback session in there as well. So that's when individuals within the management teams give each other feedback in a very sort of structured format. And we probably want to encourage them to have these after action reviews on a regular basis, because we know from research that this has really shown to improve teams and management teams' performance. So the whole idea here is to actually, instead of taking this management team on a 2-day or 3-day offsite where we might do a lot of interesting things, but then they come back and, after a couple of months, they're back basically to where they were. We're trying to break that up. We're trying to make sure that on a monthly basis, at least during their management team meetings, they will take time focusing on something that is relevant for them here and now. It could be, when we talk about strategic frames, it could be, so, okay, how are we tracking in connection to our strategy that we set up earlier this year? Or in the after action reviews, they bring in something, a project, an important meeting, an important decision they had to make, and they're evaluating that again to create value more in the flow of work. So this is basically where we are right now, and I'm almost on time.
Yes, you are. Wow, thank you so much. I think there's a lot in there too. I can see, I don't know, in the chat, Emily and Gabi, if we have any questions. I can't see any right now, but maybe in the document there's some. But I think there are so many parts of this presentation that I just sort of want to stop at and just dig deeper into. But let's see, let's wait a few seconds to see if someone has questions.
Is it okay to take a question?
Yes, of course. Sure. Go ahead, Cecilia.
Hi, I'm Cecilia, and thanks both for this inspiring presentation. So I have a question. Have you seen any correlations from this learning and development strategy and outcomes or performance? And if yes, I mean, how do you kind of measure that correlation?
Very, very good and relevant question. I think it's what we talk about the most, but I think most can agree it's really difficult to measure. I mean, if you have that, it's very difficult to isolate, the work that you do with the potential, outcome result that you're able to measure. So I mean, I can see I have one management team that I'm thinking of in particular. I worked with them closely over the past year and a half, maybe. So they went through, you know, all of these different parts of transformative leadership, and they are in this sort of flow of work kind of way of working. It's, I would say now, it's the most sort of efficient and functional management team I worked with in the past. I know that their unit, their business unit, is making, you know, record high results. But it will be extremely difficult for me to say that this is why. So it's, I mean, we're struggling with that, as you know, the same way as many others are. We have the yearly employee survey where we have manager, you know, questions relating to manager. But again, to prove that a development in those scores is really directly related to the work that we've done in developing our leaders, it's still, to some extent, it's a guessing game, unfortunately. But yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
We know that,
good to hear, in a way, confirming that we're all kind of struggling with this.
I mean, we know that they like it. We know that they experience themselves that there's a difference in sort of how they do things. But to get there to the sort of, you know, actual results, return on investment, you know, top of the pyramid in Kirkpatrick's model is it's difficult.
Thank you, Cecilia and Mattias, for answering that. I think a lot of questions are coming in now. We're gonna move on a little bit. We have 4 minutes, but there was one question. I think a lot of questions actually tap into this about measuring, but I hope you got a bit of answers now. But there's another question that I think was really interesting, and that was, I wonder how the broader community, all employees, are introduced to this and how they see this.
Excellent question. In different ways, we have, I mean, I have experience of, you know, having all staffs where sort of we've introduced this leadership concept just to create awareness that these are the aspects of leadership that we want to push and develop and sort of infuse in different ways throughout SEB. We have created a concept, we call it transformative leadership for young professionals. So these are people, it's not one of these, you know, acceleration programs. It's not a talent program. It's just aimed towards, you know, colleagues up to 35 years of age, where we focus more on self-leadership. So we use the same frame, but we try to put it more in a self-leadership, on more of a self-leadership foundation. So that's something we've done. We'll probably have 300 or 400 colleagues who went through that program. So that's something we continue to develop. So that's one way to try and also build all of our employees within these different areas.
Cool, thank you for that. Let me see, a last question. A lot about measurement. Okay, and in the context of empathetic listening and asking open-ended questions, I find myself frequently looking for questions, which distracts me from fully listening. I think that is a common problem, actually. I think you talked a little bit about that, but can you provide any tips to overcome this?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I agree, and I can relate. So when we have these sort of coaching sessions, we have something called coaching circles, where we train managers to become coaching facilitators themselves so that they can have these coaching circles with other leader peers. So I mean, we have slides with prepared questions, and at the same time, I'm saying that you should probably not look at this while you're listening to what someone is telling you, because you will never be focused on the conversation. So that could be something, you know, I think all of us can probably, you know, we can find our favorite questions, you know, favorite open questions that we can use and reuse in all kinds of different situations. But I mean, the boring answer is try to be guided by your curiosity. I mean, if you listen to what someone is telling you, if you actually listen, it will be almost impossible not to be curious, to find out more. I mean, the right question will come. And if it's the wrong question, it doesn't matter that much, to be honest. If you're curious, I mean, that will do the majority of the job, I would say.
Cool. Thank you so much. I think, yeah, it's 9:46 actually. We're on time almost. And I just want to thank everyone for listening in today, and especially you, Mattias. This was really, really inspirational. And I know that we have a lot of questions that we didn't get to answer, but I would encourage you will all get a follow-up email. If you don't get it in your inbox, check the spam inbox. I will provide you with the email address to Mattias as well, if you feel like sending him your question. You can also, of course, get in touch with us. Just answer the email, and yeah, we'll stay in touch. And yeah, yet again, thank you so much. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.